If I only knew. By Wanderlove. Chapter 15. Master Kenobi! Senator Amidala struggles to keep up with him. She's making an admirable effort, but he is a trained Jedi Master and she is in heels. Her shouts echo across the hangar, snagging the attention of nearby onlookers. They look up from their daily tasks, bewildered, and Obi-Wan even hears a few questions in binary from the temple droids. Master Kenobi, slow down for a moment and just think! Obi-Wan stops and whirls around, giving her the precious few seconds she needs to catch up to him. Her cheeks are flushed as bright. You don't understand! He hisses. Anakin is with him! I understand perfectly well, she responds crisply. The "you idiot" is clear in her tone, if not her exact words. But just tearing off after him like a chicken with its head cut off helps absolutely no one. It took 4 Jedi to finally subdue Dooku. Can you and Anakin take down his master alone? Besides which, Palpatine has been planning this for years. Do you really think he doesn't have at least 30 backup plans in case he was discovered literally?
I don't... Yes, but Anakin is with him and... Oh, of course it all makes sense now. I thought it was all about sex, but he was really grooming Anakin to be his apprentice this whole time. What else can I do?
Well, for starters, you could at least give the guest of the council a heads up.
Oh, yes. For the first time since Senator Amidala's revelation, Obi-Wan really truly stops. Not just physically, but mentally as well. She is right. Not only is blind panic unhelpful, it could end up doing more harm than good and placing Anakin in even more danger. He inhales deeply, swallows, and begins to speak slowly. If he's been playing the long game, he's not suddenly going to accelerate his plans.
Exactly, Senator Amidala says with a relieved nod, looking grateful to have the sane, rational version of Obi-Wan back. He won't make his move until we come crashing into his office, demanding he give back the emergency powers he's worked so hard to obtain, and forcing his hand.
Which will probably happen sometime in the next... He glances at the chrono. Hour also. Masters Windu and Fisto are already on their way to meet Senator Organa. So sometime, but probably not much. And he'll want to secure Anakin's loyalty before that confrontation. With Dooku dead, he'll need an apprentice to tip the scales in his favor, so even slightly less time.
It will be enough, Senator Amidala says, determined. It has to be enough. And if it isn't, I'll send out a public broadcast with everything I've discovered, everything you've told me. If we fail, someone else must take up the charge.
Wait until we have already engaged him. Once you start your broadcast, Palpatine will almost certainly want to shut you up as quickly as possible. Hopefully, we shall prove enough of a distraction that you will have time to get your message out.
No! Senator Amidala declares with a shake of her head. We must start the broadcast before you confront him. Anything else will make his supporters cry coup. As a Republic senator, I have the authority to commandeer the guard to arrest anyone I suspect of colluding with the separatists. It was in one of those terrible martial law expansion bills that I protested so loudly. Believe me, I know all the technicalities. Allow me to start my broadcast, even if it is only a few minutes, and take the clones with you. You'll need the backup, and it will lend additional legitimacy.
Only if you also consent to a clone guard, Waxer and Boyle, 2 of my very best.
Very well,
she says, reluctance clear in the tilt of her shoulders. Obi-Wan nods brusquely and types out a command to Rex and Cody. They will help him organize both the group to guard Senator Amidala and to accompany him to the Chancellor's office. He holds up his hand for a moment, awaiting a reply, and is not let down by Cody's prompt, succinct response. Bless the man. Waxer and Boyle will meet you at the temple entrance, Obi-Wan says. Cody's on his way. I only gave the briefest of explanations. You'll have to explain more on the way.
Good, I'll take them to Bale's office and redirect the other Jedi to meet you and the clones at Palpatine's office. We can't risk the comms. I know for a fact that Palpatine tracks communications in and out of the building. We'll engage security measures and prepare for the broadcast there.
We will wait for as long as we can, but if he's threatening Anakin, I don't plan to stand idly by.
Obi-Wan warns her. Senator Amidala gives him a startled considering look, then hums thoughtfully and shakes his head. No, of course not, she murmurs. No, if you will please excuse me, it appears that I will have to compose the defining speech of my political career in, 30 minutes or less.
Go. May the Force be with you, Obi-Wan says. Senator Amidala hesitates for the briefest of additional seconds.
You'll bring him back safe, won't you? If anyone can do it, it'll be you, she says, biting at her lip.
You have a speech to write, Obi-Wan replies. By now, a grim, determined Cody is approaching, followed by a large group of equally as determined-looking clones. Let me worry about Anakin and the Sith. The best thing you can do for him now is to focus on your part.
Senator Amidala closes her eyes, inhales deeply, and then hurries away. Obi-Wan turns to face Cody. Erex, 5, Egos, Christ, plus half a dozen other clones. Obi-Wan blinks.
What's this about?
He asks, confused.
We're coming with you to take down the Sith Lord.
Rex explains, his tone breaking no argument. Obi-Wan turns to Cody, who gives him an unapologetic shrug. Obi-Wan turns back to the men.
I'm touched really, but I was only planning to take Cody and perhaps Commander Fox from the Senate Guards. We're going up against Dooku's master. It won't be pretty. We heard General Skywalker got himself into trouble.
Fives interjects.
Anakin is currently with Darth Sidious, though I doubt he realizes who he really is or how much danger he's in,
Obi-Wan admits.
It's the Chancellor. He's been under our noses this whole time.
The men of the 501st share a long look, then as one cross their arms and set their jaws.
Then we're coming. We don't leave our people behind. And we're not going to leave our commander to go at a Sith Lord alone,
cries adds, the men from the 212th nodding vigorously in agreement. True, Buzz, Obi-Wan begins, exasperated.
Sir,
Cody says softly, cutting him off.
We have no idea what Palpatine has in store for us. I know we're only clones, but surely you'll need all the help you can get.
Obi-Wan pauses, takes in the looks of stubborn determination facing him down, and gives in. He knows when a battle is lost. We don't deserve you, Obi-Wan says with a shake of his head and his heart swelling.
I think that for so long you Jedi have been called upon to stand alone against this darkness that you've come to expect, that's all that you deserve.
Cody says, carefully choosing each word.
But you're not alone, sir. Not anymore. Oh, Cody,
Obi-Wan sighs.
After this is all done, let's get a real drink together, not that hand sanitizer 5 Skulls liquor.
Hey!
Sounds like a plan, sir.
Cody responds, lips twitching. He turns to the men.
Okay, men, move out. Rendezvous with Fox and the Senate Guards in T-minus 20 minutes.
A grim pallor is cast over Master Windu's face as he and Master Fistu meet Obi-Wan and the troopers at the elevators. Silently, they board. A bit of a cramped fit with a dozen-plus clones and 3 Jedi, but nothing they're unused to with the war and shared quarters. Master Windu takes out his comm as the doors close behind him.
Senator Amidala should be beginning a broadcast any moment now,
he explains as the senator in question flickers to life. People of the Republic, her hollow begins, voice clear and determined. I come before you to share grim news. It won't be easy to hear this, I know. But for too long I have carried out my investigations in secret, too afraid of how the public would react. Democracy dies in darkness. That's what Chief Palpatine is counting on. He believes the worst of our citizens in our complacency and greed and selfishness. For a long time I allowed myself to believe the same. No longer. For the next hour, I will lay out a full recounting of my investigations into the treasonous actions of Chief Palpatine and his efforts to undermine faith in our Republic and each other. I will lay the evidence out clearly, concisely, and objectively, then allow you to make your own decisions. As a precautionary measure, I have asked some of our bravest and most loyal soldiers to detain Chief Palpatine until justice can be served.
Master Windu cuts the feed with a flick of his wrist, just as the lift doors begin to slide open. I think we've given her enough time,
he says brusquely. He steps out into the carpeted hallway, the door to the Chancellor's office seeming miles away.
Troopers, stay behind us until we have Sidious subdued. If you see an opening, lay down cover fire to allow us time to recover. But your main task is to repel any outside interference. We don't know what sort of countermeasures Palpatine will have in place, so stay alert for anything. Yes, sir.
The troopers snap out smartly. Master Windu nods.
Robert well.
Master Windu's face is flinty as he pauses in front of the dark metal doors and gives them all one last measured look. With a bang, he throws open the doors to Palpatine's office. The Jedi stride inside, the clones following close behind in lockstep with their hands firmly wrapped around their blasters. As they enter the main room, they find Anakin and Palpatine standing near the large, expensive central desk. Palpatine is the first to turn around, his face neutral, genial even, as his eyes carefully catalogue their large armed contingent and militant posture.
Master Jedi, how wonderful of you to join us,
Palpatine says in greeting. Anakin turns and takes in their grim faces, confusion blooming over his features.
Obi-Wan, what? Anakin, please step away from him. What is this about? Anakin demands, confusion still coloring his features, though we can't help the unconscious way he immediately obeys Obi-Wan's command. Your plans have failed, Palpatine, Master Windu says evenly. Anakin's head whips back around to stare at Palpatine as Master Windu, Obi-Wan, and Master Kephisto draw unlit sabers from their belts. By the order of the Galactic Senate, we are placing you under arrest, Darth Sidious. A pause. An inhale. A heartbeat.
Well, it certainly took you long enough,
Palpatine says with a heavy sigh, sinking down to sit in his richly appointed chair, his wide desk a chasm between him and the Jedi.
I'm curious. Which one of you finally figured it out? I was beginning to think I would have to just announce to the galaxy. Master Kenobi, Master Windu, or maybe Master Yoda.
None of the above, Obi-Wan replies, warily handling his saber hilt and eyeing Anakin, who is backed up slightly, but is still far too close to Palpatine for his comfort. But at this point in the war, engaging Darksiders in clever small talk while maneuvering into position was practically old hat. He begins to slink sideways. It was Senator Amidala. A look of genuine surprise flashes across Palpatine's face, followed closely by rage, before it is replaced with his usual amicability.
Well, he chuckles, shaking his head. I must say, this is not the first time I've underestimated her, but it will certainly be the last. Tell me, Master Jedi, how does it feel to be outsmarted by a mere force-null girl?
I wouldn't know,
Obi-Wan replies with a razor-sharp grin.
Seems like something we should be asking you.
Another whip flash of rage, this time strong enough to be felt in the Force, and Sith House! How has he been hiding this from them? The strength of his anger nearly bowls Obi-Wan over. This, more than anything, seems to snap Anakin out of his indecision. He takes another step backwards, closer to Obi-Wan, and Obi-Wan dares to breathe a small sigh of relief. You're a Sith, Anakin demands, eyes still fixed on Palpatine, and his shock still reverberating throughout the Force. His next words are less of a question than a statement. You're a Sith.
Anakin, my boy,
Palpatine says with a disappointed shake of his head.
All I am is a Force user who refuses to be bound by the Jedi's narrow, dogmatic belief system. I am sorry that I had to conceal the truth from you, but it was only to protect myself. They would have hunted me from one end of the galaxy to the other simply because I dared to seek out new powers they were too afraid to even dream of.
Don't listen to him,
Master Windu warns.
He's a Sith, they lie.
Of course, that's what you would say,
Palpatine scoffs.
The pursuit of power should not be demonized, so long as it is for all the right reasons. All I have ever wanted is the power to change things for the better, for my people, for the Republic, for you, Anakin.
Stop talking,
Obi-Wan hisses, igniting his saber with a snap and stepping in front of Anakin. Palpatine's eyes narrow.
You've lost, Sith.
Is that what you think?
He asks pleasantly. He stands to his feet and presses the calm button on his desk. Suddenly his face and voice twist, furl, and spit into something nearly unrecognizable.
Execute Order 66.
For a moment nothing happens, then out of the corner of his eye, Obi-Wan sees Fox raise his blaster to point straight at Obi-Wan. Friendly fire! Rex bellows, tackling Fox to the ground as all hell breaks loose. 3 of the clones they brought along are following Fox's lead, raising their blasters to aim straight at the Jedi as their remaining brothers whirl around to try to tackle them to the ground. The chips! We forgot about the Force! Damn chips! Obi-Wan thinks in horror. Palpatine is visibly confused at the chaos amongst the clones, a frown marring his features as he watches them scatter and try to subdue their brothers. He shakes his head in disgust and snaps out a curved hilt saber.
No matter,
he snarls.
If you want something done right, best to do it yourself.
Obi-Wan has no time to brace himself as Palpatine ferociously launches himself across the desk, his red plasma blade casting dark shadows across the room. Anakin's lightsaber flicks out, catching the powerful blow. He grunts and repels the attack, while Obi-Wan and the others scramble to ignite their own sabers and join the fray. Palpatine, this duddering old man routine now fully shed, turns lightning quick and pulls on the cloud of darkness hanging over the room to anticipate and countermand their every move. Minutes. Seconds? Hours? It is so hard to tell time in the thick of a duel. In and Master Fistu lets out a cry as Palpatine's saber makes a move for his neck and slices through his sensitive tentacle tresses. Those extra seconds give Master Fisto enough time to wrench backwards, preventing decapitation, but he falls to the ground in delirious pain, his severed tentacles smacking wetly to the ground nearby. Palpatine raises his arm for the killing blow, but Obi-Wan and Anakin recover, charge, and engage, successfully diverting his attention. Obi-Wan can see one of the clones dart forward, grab the crumpled Master Fistu under his armpits, and drag him back. The clone neatly dodges both the Jedi and Sith, carefully maneuvering the Jedi Master to safety behind a pedestal displaying some of Palpatine's hideous artwork. The saltwater smell of nautilin blood and carpet fibers burnt by plasma blades fills the air. Anakin is the next to fall, taken out by a twist of Palpatine's saber and a none too delicate force shove, followed closely by Master Windu, who loses his hand and his lightsaber in one blow. He falls back, his face pained but silent, as he manages to call his lightsaber back to his hand and continue the fight for a few more precious minutes, before Palpatine plunges his saber deep into Master Windu's gut. Two clones let out a barrage of blaster bolts, which seems to do little but irritate Palpatine as he easily deflects them. The momentary distraction is just long enough for Cody and Christ to charge forward and move the still barely breathing Master Windu out of the line of fire. Palpatine dispatches the clones, laying down cover fire with a flick of his wrist, sending them flying into the walls with a sickening crack. He delivers another blow, one aimed straight for Master Windu's head. Cody shifts at the last second, using his body to shield Master Windu. The lightsaber connects squarely with Cody's ribs, and he crumples to the ground as Obi-Wan rushes forward, locking blades with Palpatine in a furious series of blows. Palpatine tries to shove him away like he did with Anakin, but Obi-Wan is ready for the trick and rolls out of the way, swinging his saber around as he comes up. Palpatine's face snarls with frustration. It takes a few minutes, but Obi-Wan finally realizes why he's the only one still standing and why Palpatine seems to be struggling. He doesn't want to kill Obi-Wan. He can't kill Obi-Wan, not without losing whatever small chance he might yet have of still turning Anakin, so instead he's trying to neutralize Obi-Wan without killing him, but clearly has little experience with minimalizing casualties. Obi-Wan imagines it's not exactly a prized skill among Sith Lords, not the way it is for Jedi. Obi-Wan stumbles, forced back by another glancing blow and the shock of his realization. Sidious is still trying to turn Anakin. He just barely ducks in time, and Anakin leaps forward, his blade spinning extravagantly and face screwed up with protective determination. Palpatine turns and physically shoves Obi-Wan away. It's not much, only a couple dozen centimeters, but it's enough apparently. Palpatine has maneuvered them into a corner of the room taken up by a wall-spanning piece of artwork consisting of dark, tangled metal vines and branches, and, as Obi-Wan slides back, the metal fingers reach out and snag themselves across his ankle, hips, throat. It soon becomes clear that this is very much not just another one of Palpatine's ugly pieces of art. The swaying, curling metal vines pull him up into the air, and he wheezes as they begin to tighten uncomfortably, feeling suddenly as if he is being dunked in an oily well of darkness. Palpatine whirls away as Anakin remains in front of Obi-Wan, laser raised in one of the few defensive stances of Show and panting heavily. The lights of Coruscanti traffic wink and flicker outside of the wide window. Their banal normality is somehow turned sinister in the dense, dark air of the office. Palpatine pauses.
I am an understanding man, Anakin,
he says finally, voice even and reasonable.
I know you are only doing what you feel your duty demands, but there's no reason for us to continue to be enemies.
You're a Sith! You've been orchestrating this whole war!
The old order must first burn to the ground before a newer, more just and peaceful empire can rise in its place, Palpatine says. But you can rise with me, Anakin. I know how difficult these past few weeks have been for you, but I promised to help you find a way to save your lover, and I honor my promises. I can teach you to stop death.
That's impossible, Anakin says, and Obi-Wan wants to scream because it's less of a confident rebuttal and more of a sort disbelieving curiosity. He chokes and tries to reach out through the bond, but the dark is choking everything, and the metal vines seem to be blocking a connection to the Force. He tries to reach out physically instead, straining to wrench his arm free of the vines, but all of his struggles only seem to make the metal branches and tendrils pull tight. But he needs to snap Anakin out of it. Doesn't he realize right now Palpatine will tell him anything he wants to hear?
Only to a Jedi. With the power of the dark side, anything is possible. It's just a matter of having the courage to reach out and take it.
Palpatine's voice turns sickly sweet, wheedling. He withdraws, then flicks off his saber and tosses it to the side.
Anakin keeps his lightsaber raised, but wary rather than aggressive.
I can help you unlock the power to save the one you love, not only once, but 1,000 times over. You can protect him from anyone or anything that tries to take him from you. You will have him at your side forever, the whole galaxy at your feet.
A galaxy of ashes. You destroy the Jedi, enslave the clones with your chip, assassinate the senators who stood in your way.
Collateral damage, sad but necessary. It's simply a question of whether you love those random Jedi clones and senators more than you love Obi-Wan Kenobi. Are their lives worth his death?
Anakin and Palpatine face off, the chasm of open space between them crackling with tension and the Force. Obi-Wan can't tell if the reason it's so hard to breathe is because of the metal tendrils wrapping ever tighter around his chest, or his own screaming grief.
Then a subtle shift of Anakin's fingers repositioning around his saber hilt.
Yes, he says. Palpatine's face begins to stretch into a gruesome smile. Anakin flashes a sharp-toothed, half-wild smile in return, and Obi-Wan lets out a muffled scream. He knows that look, knows that Anakin is about to do something unbearably stupid, so stupid even Anakin recognizes it's a terrible idea. Yes, their lives are worth everything. They're my family, my friends, innocent strangers who I swore to protect, and I won't let them burn, not even to save him. That's not love. That's my own selfishness. I'll never join you. Molten rage floods the Force. Palpatine's face twists and he raises his hands in an all too familiar clawed gesture. Anakin snaps up his lightsaber, absorbing the first bolts of Sith lightning with the plasma blade.
You foolish boy!
Palpatine snarls. He redoubles his efforts and Anakin's face turns pained, his arm shaking with the effort to simultaneously hold his saber up against the onslaught and maintain his focus in the Force. His foot slips backward against the rug-covered floor, sweat forming at his temples.
This is all Kenobi's fault. I nearly had you all those years ago. And then he just decided to interfere and kept interfering over and over and over again. Do you know how galling it was to be accused of child molestation by a self-righteous knight half my age?
Each word only seems to fuel his lightning. The sparks and folds, seeming to grow tenfold. Anakin angles his lightsaber and falls to his knees, trying to better brace himself.
I'm the most powerful Sith Lord who ever lived. I've brought the Republic to its knees and reshaped it in my own image, amassed fantastic powers that most Force users could only dream of, outmaneuvered everyone from the greatest of Jedi to my own apprentices. And then there was this random Jedi, neither particularly powerful nor particularly smart, but standing in my way at every turn, and I tried to throw him straight into the path of danger, hoping that one of my idiotic lackeys would finally manage to do the damn jobs and kill him, but no!
Anakin gasps as a single tendril of lightning sneaks its way past his defenses. That's all Palpatine needs. The first tendril is followed closely by a second, then a third, until Anakin's lightsaber flies from his hand and he falls fully to the ground, teeth gritted in pain as bolt after bolt lashes his body.
No matter. I will relish the chance to kill him myself. I'll do it slowly, painfully, and make you watch until you're begging to join me. And then, once you've realized the mistake you made in turning down my generous offer, I will finally kill him and bring him back to life so that we can do it all over again.
He pauses in his onslaught just slightly, the lightning fading to thinner, dimmer tendrils.
Reconsidering?
Never! Anakin chokes out, the smell of burnt flesh and synth leather heavy in the air.
A pity,
Palpatine declares, raising his claw-like hands to deliver the final surge. All of a sudden, Palpatine's body jerks, the twists oddly, and there is the added smell of blaster discharge. I don't criven think so, Cody spits out. Palpatine whirls around, little sparks already flying out of his fingertips, and Obi-Wan follows his gaze to see Cody clutching at his bloodied side with one hand as the other aims a blaster at Palpatine. In a split second, the Sith lightning flies from Palpatine's hands, connecting squarely with Cody's chest. But it is a sputtering thing, Palpatine clearly weakened by the previous unanticipated shot straight to the back. Cody screams and falls against the nearby wall, but through it all he never releases his hold on the blaster, squeezing out a few more shots. Each one slams into Palpatine, seeming to weaken and infuriate him in equal measure. The blaster jams, and after a couple of useless clicking pulls of the trigger, Cody gives a growl and throws the now useless blaster at Palpatine's head. Palpatine dodges to avoid the projectile, too focused on electrocuting Cody to deflect it properly with the Force, and steps back straight into Anakin's lightsaber. His sickly yellow eyes go wide with disbelief, mouth opening for one final screech as Anakin jerkily twists and pulls at his saber. With an arm-quaking effort, Anakin pulls the saber free from Palpatine's body with a squelch, cleanly severing him in two. The two halves topple over, thudding against the ground with a sickening sound. No one dares to breathe for a moment. Then Cody slides down the wall, coming to rest with a final thump. He's silent, too silent, even within the terrible stillness of the room. Rex pushes forward past the other clones and falls to his knees beside Cody. Vode, no, Vode, don't leave me. Rex is crying, his face a mess of snot and blood and tears. We almost made it out, you're almost there, hang on. No! His wailing scream of anguish will haunt Obi-Wan's dreams for the rest of his life. The entire temple is still, heavy with grief, and even the thousands gathered in the center atrium can't seem to break the silence, their movements as slow and hushed as possible. The Jedi and clones have gathered to mourn the victims of Order 66. Even those still in the halls of healing demanded that they should be allowed to attend. There's Master Fisto looking oddly off balance with his right side tentacle tresses cut so short, while his set on the left side remained the same length. Master Windu still attached to an IV drip and an chair. Commander Fox still recovering from the concussion Rex gave him while wrestling him to the ground. Barriss Offee, her burned arm held gingerly at her side, disfigured by the clones whose chips she had been trying to deactivate at the time of the order. Bly, his face still marked by a giant bloomy yellow-green bruise from where Ayla had been forced to defend herself. Ayla herself is only lightly bruised, but Bly still flinches every time he sees her, and so she keeps her distance for now, until the injuries he inflicted fade. Senator Amidala, the newly elected Chancellor Organa, and the rest of the delegation of 2,000 are also present, their faces drawn with grief. At Chancellor Organa and Master Windu's invitation, a small group of stiff-backed separatist diplomats stand at the back of the room to pay their stilted but sincere respects, watched carefully, distrustfully by a group of clone escorts. Even the free peoples of Tatooine have elected to send a representative, a plainly dressed but proud Shmi Skywalker, who stands side by side with Anakin. They all stare stone-faced at the bodies laid to rest in the grand atrium of the temple, the only spot big enough to hold them all. 100 Jedi and clones had spent all week hastily preparing funeral pyres. The council had decreed that, should their brothers consent, the clones would be permitted state funerals in the temple, the first non-Force sensitives allowed such an honor in nearly 1,000 years. But, they had decided, it was only appropriate, given the magnitude of the moment and the devastation wrought by Order 66, not only on the Jedi, but on the clones forced to carry out Sidious's bidding. Order 66 had been disastrous, though not nearly as disastrous as it could have been. A little under 15% of the clones had been forced to turn on their Jedi commanders by their still-active chips. Most had been quickly, harmlessly disarmed by their brothers before they could injure anyone, and then returned to their senses hours later by Echo and Five's quick-thinking splice efforts once Palpatine had been defeated. Most, but not all. And so now 31 clones, 54 Jedi Knights, and 1 padawan now lay in state, their bodies concealed with fresh white linen. Cody's corpse is in a place of honor at the center of the room, his right arm folded across his chest, clear even under the thin barrier of the linen sheet. But Obi-Wan can't stare for too long, his own guilt and pain forcing his eyes to skitter elsewhere. He leans into Anakin and his lover squeezes his shoulder, offering what strength he can. Helplessly, Obi-Wan's eyes drift to the smallest of the biers, closely positioned next to a much larger platform as if the second body is guarding and protecting the second. Master Bilibah stands at the foot of both, her face still stained with tears. Master Windu has positioned his hover chair as closely as possible to his former padawan, offering her what support he can. Her padawan, Caleb Doom, had always been a bright, curious boy who loved exploring the planets they deployed to. As was always the battalion's custom, a single clone, Commander Gray, had been deployed to babysit Caleb when they first landed planetside to make sure the 13-year-old boy didn't get lost or hurt during his adventures. They had been alone together when Order 66 went out, no other brothers nearby to intervene, when Gray took out his blaster and shot the poor child point blank. By the time Master Bilibah and the rest of the battalion arrived, the Order had been countermanded and Gray had been himself again, mad with grief and performing useless chest compressions on the long-dead boy. He'd paused only long enough to listen to Master Bilibah's explanation and their medic's confirmation that there was nothing to be done for Caleb. Then, Gray calmly picked up his blaster and shot himself in the head. He wasn't the only one. Most of the clones currently lying in the atrium had killed themselves once they realized what they had been forced to do. Still more had attempted it and cursed their brothers for saving them. Those clones, plus the brothers and Jedi healers assigned to protect them from themselves, were amongst the only members absent from the funerals today. They had delayed the funerals as long as possible to allow as many of the deployed battalions to return to Coruscant as possible. Not a terribly long wait, what with Grievous finally dead, at Master Theen's hands, Palpatine's manipulations laid bare, and Chancellor Organa's determination to sue for peace, and a diplomatic conclusion to the crisis. From what Obi-Wan understood, the details were still caught in committee, but progressing well. Everyone was just so tired of fighting. The Republic Senate would agree to fundamental reforms to address the Separatists' concern, while the Separatists, particularly the Federation and Banking Clan, would pay reparations for their role in conflict. With some unseen signal, thousands of clones stamped their heels against the floor and thumped their palms against their shoulders in unison. Ni Sukuyi, Gar Kiradik, Ni Pratatli, Gai Darsum. They shout, their words ringing through the temple, throughout all of Coruscant and the galaxy, it seems. One by one they begin to list the names of the dead, their words sure, strong. When one brother falters, another will lay a hand on his shoulder and take up the chant with double the intensity. As they finish each name, that person's bier begins to lower into the pyres, the doors sealing shut around them and shooting a brilliant golden light into the air. It takes an age, but then all 86 names have been read aloud and their bodies nothing more than light and smoke. "I am one with the Force, and the Force is with me," Obi-Wan murmurs into the terrible stillness as he hangs his head and tries to not break under the weight of so many dead for so little reason. The mourners disperse slowly, reluctantly, and for several long minutes Obi-Wan and Anakin can only watch them numbly. Finally, Shmi lays a gentle hand upon Anakin's shoulder. "Come, Annie, Obi-Wan, I believe you two owe me some introductions," she says, pulling them out of their dark thoughts with the practiced ease of a woman who has had to do this way too many times for way too many friends. "Of course," Obi-Wan murmurs, shaking himself. He gestures to Rex and Ahsoka, who haven't moved, both of them hunched over where Cody's body once lay, as if the weight of the world is upon their shoulders. "Ahsoka and Rex should be along any moment now." As if called by their names, Ahsoka and Rex trudge over, their footsteps heavy, weighted against the temple marble. They come to a stop in front of the Skywalkers and Obi-Wan, and attempt wan smiles. Shmi clasps an arm to Rex's upper arm. "Captain Rex, it is so good to finally meet you in person.
Thank you so much for looking after my family for so long. I know it is no easy task, she says, her voice warm and sympathetic without being condescending. He inclines his head silently, accepting the greeting without comment. Silence has been Rex's default for the past few weeks. Once he makes eye contact, Shmi nods, then turns to Ahsoka. She opens her arms and immediately scoops the Togruta girl up into a big hug. Oh, my dear. I know we haven't officially met yet, but I've heard so much about you that I feel as if I already know you. And I know that no one deserves to lose a friend this way, but especially not you. Ahsoka lets loose a watery laugh.
Does Sky Guy really complain about me that much?
She asks. Shmi smiles. Oh, it's not just Annie, though I'll admit a good deal of it comes from him. Padme, Barris, Obi-Wan, they all speak very highly of you.
She calls you Annie too?
Ahsoka asks, a familiar gleam in her eyes, lightening both her demeanor and the force around her. Anakin winces. Mom, he whines. Anakin and Obi-Wan's comms beep, and Obi-Wan glances down. He shares an uneasy look with Anakin, then turns back to Shmi, Rex, and Ahsoka. Unfortunately, we may have to cut this short, Obi-Wan says apologetically. Anakin and I have been called before the council. They're going to deliver their final verdict on our resignations and our suggestion.
Nonsense. We'll wait for you outside the council rooms,
Shmi says confidently. Ahsoka opens her mouth.
Well, you see, normally the council doesn't like people just loitering around.
Ahsoka begins, then trails away at Shmi's implacably serene look.
On second thought, that sounds like a great idea. Maybe you could tell me more embarrassing childhood stories about Anakin.
Of course. And perhaps you, too, can tell me more about how long it took my two idiot sons to admit they were in love and just kiss already.
Shmi! Obi-Wan exclaims, going crimson. Shmi levels a stern look his way.
Obi-Wan, you told me how you and Anakin used the power of love to defeat an evil Force wizard and are now planning to quit the Jedi Order to run away together. If you're not sleeping together already, I certainly hope you're planning to start soon.
If you keep talking like that, you're going to give him and Ahsoka a heart attack. Anakin interjects, amused. Ahsoka and Obi-Wan just look pained. Obi-Wan's weird about sex. All the Jedi are. You're not supposed to talk about it, especially in front of other people, and especially not in front of younglings.
Whatever for? It's just a normal, natural part of life. You two clearly love each other very much. I'm very happy for you both. Besides, with all the slaves freed and the huts finally gone, I've found myself with a lot more free time on my hands. Gossip is really the only way to keep my mind occupied these days.
We're leaving now, Obi-Wan says quickly, before Anakin can launch into some weird detailed rendition of their tortured love affair thus far. He loves Shmi a lot, and on the one hand, he's very glad she and Anakin are so open with each other, but he's also not quite ready to share so much with her. Anakin rolls his eyes, but by then, Master Plo Koon has arrived with Wolf in tow, forestalling any further teasing. They quickly make their way to the council chambers. No one wants to leave the council waiting and irritate them even further right before what's sure to be an already contentious debate. They nod one final time to their compatriots, Ahsoka giving a goofy thumbs up as Rex, Wolf, and Shmi nod solemnly in return. Then Master Plo Koon, Obi-Wan, and Anakin turn and enter the council chambers.
Master Koon, Master Kenobi, Knight Skywalker,
Master Yoda begins gravely. He looks as if he's aged 300 years in the past few weeks.
Accept your resignations, this council does, but a decision on your proposal yet to be discussed it is.
We believe that we have already made our case, Obi-Wan says quietly. I can continue to argue the point until I am hoarse, but I don't know what more I can add that would change your minds. And yet you have already begun to change other Jedi's minds, Master Kalar says severely. Already dozens of other Jedi have petitioned to join your new school, though it doesn't even exist. I would argue that some of those Jedi, such as Knight Sakura, would have left the Order no matter what we had planned, Master Plo Koon says, folding his arms over his chest. The school only offers an alternate path. And what of Skywalker's padawan? Ahsoka Tano is one of our most promising young members, but you have persuaded her to instead abandon her vows and follow you straight into this craziness, Master Mundi says. Anyone who has seen me with Anakin and Ahsoka knows full well that it is usually me following them straight into craziness, and not the other way around. Obi-Wan returns dryly. As our decision affects her, we felt it was only right to inform her of our plans. We simply laid out the facts and our own reasoning, then allowed her space and time to come to her own decision. We never wanted to unduly influence anyone.
You are highly visible members of this order. Whether you want it or not, you hold a great deal of sway over a great many of our members. If you insist on following this path, you will almost certainly cause a schism of the Jedi Order, Master Gallia says accusingly. After everything we just went through, you wish to split us up and make us even weaker.
We want nothing of this sort. That's why the Council's approval is so important. With your blessing, we can make clear that we are not separate, but rather two sides of the same coin. Our interpretation of the code might be a little different, but we still share the same values, the same mission. We'd be like a new branch in the tree. An independent sect, Master Windu says, quietly. The first time he spoke in this whole meeting. Closely linked with our order, but not quite bound by the old code or the Council. To help where the code or the Council would traditionally forbid it, Obi-Wan says. He squeezes Anakin's hand and lets his voice ring out clear and strong. I only want to help. Please let me help. I move to officially approve the creation of a reform-focused sect of the Jedi Order led by Masters Kenobi and Coon. Master Windu says. His voice is heavy, exhausted. Miss! Master Mundi says, sounding scandalized. Master Windu cuts his eyes to the side and gives a weary shake of his head. Okay, Addy. Every hour I can feel Dapper slipping away, blaming herself, and falling even farther away from the light. And I just don't know how to help her. I'm beginning to suspect I can't. That the code forbids me from providing unconditional support and compassion she needs right now. We can negotiate the exact terms, but I won't lose my padawan and hundreds of equally as vulnerable Jedi. Not when there is some alternative I can offer them.
An agreement? Rah! Master Yoda says. Master Mundi turns to him, looking equally as betrayed. Agree with Master Kenobi's approach? I do not. But insists that Kenobi abandon his chosen path. I cannot. Blind I was to the Sith, to my own faults, to the cracks within the Order. Change needed, it is. How? Who am I to say?
If even the Senate can recognize their need for reform, how could we demand any less of ourselves? Master T says. She purses her lips. I do vote to bless the creation of Kenobi's new sect and its accompanying school. All in favor? There's a chorus of eyes and raised hands, not anywhere close to unanimous or enthusiastic, but enough. Master T nods, satisfied. Very well then, let us discuss the details.
Obi-Wan walks out of the council chambers nearly 3 hours later, still in shock. Ahsoka, Rex, Wolf, and Shmi are waiting for them, their faces expectant, as the door slide open to reveal Master... No, just Plu of the Keldor had insisted if they were doing this together as equals, then Obi-Wan had to start calling him by his first name. Plo Koon, Obi-Wan, and Anakin.
It is done,
Plo Koon says, a bright, happy radiance surrounding him in the Force. Really? Truly? Ahsoka says with a sharp inhale. She smiles. Of course, I can't believe you ever doubted us. Anakin responds, placing his hands on his hips and letting loose a relieved, disbelieving laugh.
They'll recognize us and our school as an independent subset of the Order, not bound by the code, but one that would allow Jedi to move freely back and forth between the temple and our school without any repercussion. We've agreed to forfeit our claim to any Jedi titles, such as Knight or Master, and to offer a semi-permanent position at our school for one of the Masters to give seminars on the benefits of the traditional code. They also offered us funding, but Obi-Wan told them to stick it where the stars don't shine. Anakin adds cheerfully, That's not quite what happened.
That's exactly what happened, Plo Koon says with an amused shake of his head. Obi-Wan slurs, even Wolf's lips are twitching.
But it was the right tech. This way we won't be beholden to the Council's whims. And they can claim plausible deniability if we start any not-quite Senate-approved slave revolts.
Rex added quietly. Obi-Wan's heart swells. It's the first time that Rex has spoken in weeks, apart from the few one-word responses when prompted.
Shmi pats Rex's arm approvingly, whether at the fact that she likes his slave revolt idea or has picked up on what an important step this is for Rex. Obi-Wan doesn't know. Maybe both. Shmi is a discerning woman. Tell me, Shmi, have you ever had a shark burger? Obi-Wan asks suddenly. Shmi frowns, then shakes her head, all while Ahsoka practically starts jumping up and down in joy.
We're going to Nexus to celebrate,
she crows excitedly.
Shmi Skywalker, we're about to change your life.
I look forward to it.
Shmi responds bemused. Ahsoka interlaces arms with her, so that Shmi is bracketed on either end by Rex and Ahsoka. They begin to sashay away, Ahsoka chattering excitedly about the upgrades on the new temple speeders and how she's been dying to try them out. Snips, Anakin calls out fondly. Leave them driving to me or Rex. You know you don't have your Coruscanti license yet.
Sky Guy, come on! I've flown multi-million credit fighters through the middle of a war zone. You know I can fly a dinky little speeder.
Yes, well, the flying skills learned in a war zone don't really transfer to Coruscanti traffic jam, which I know you know because you failed the temple speeder test. Twice.
Ah! Shmi, can't you?
Her voice fades out as she, Shmi, and Rex turn the corner. Anakin and Obi-Wan drift a little behind. Anakin puts a hand to Obi-Wan's upper arm, gently drawing him to a stop. Are you upset? Anakin asks, hesitantly, his gaze searching Obi-Wan's face as he reaches out in the Force and curls a questioning tendril around Obi-Wan's thoughts. No, nothing of the sort. Obi-Wan hurries to reassure him. I just suppose that for a long time, I have had a series of itemized goals laid out in front of me. Finish that mission, win this battle, negotiate this armistice, that I don't really know what to do with myself now that all those clear stepping stones are gone. I know we had planned for it, but it seems so unreal now that it's truly happening. What do we do now? Well, first there's Dexes. Anakin says thoughtfully. Obi-Wan barks out a laugh. I'm serious! All the best decisions happen on a full stomach. But then after that I figure we can start by scouting out locations for our new school. Just the two of us, the Twilight, and the fluffy king-size bed I just installed. Heat floods across the bond. Will we actually be scouting out locations, or is this all just some sort of elaborate excuse to get me alone for the next 3 months? Obi-Wan asks, suspiciously. Anakin shakes his vigorously and affects an air of innocence. Why can't we do both? Anakin protests. Aren't you the one that taught me to multitask? Yes, and you've never been very good at it. You tend to just fixate on whatever you wanted to be doing in the first place. Hey now, I've done my research, archival research, aren't you proud? And even plotted out our itinerary. There's this jungle moon in the Outer Rim, out past Mandalore, that I think might be worth checking out. According to the archives, it's got some old abandoned Jedi temples, which, hey, pre-built facilities is definitely a plus. Sounds wonderful, Obi-Wan says fondly. He kisses Anakin soundly, the Force singing between them. As he pulls away reluctantly, he opens his eyes to drink in the sight of Anakin Skywalker, here and alive, and his. When do we leave?